Well, tonight I'm going to tell you some of the stories that I learned as a child. We had a series of a family holidays to a house in Tipperary, and it was one of those families and one of those houses that, well, I don't think they exist anymore. It was sort of the end of the Anglo-Irish ascendancy, if you like. I mean, that house has long been sold, and the people I know, the other children there, have grown up and become accountants and estate agents and whatnot in England. But we used to go, and there was a lady. They might have called her a nanny, but they wasn't really a nanny, who would look after us little children. And she would tell us stories. Well, the first story I'm going to tell you tonight is the legend of Bottle Hill. Once upon a time, long, long ago, so long ago that no one's quite sure if it really happened or not, there was a family in County Cork called the O'Dwyers. Now, Paddy O'Dwyer was a poor farmer, and I mean poor in both senses of the word. He never had any money, and he wasn't very good at farming. Now, Paddy O'Dwyer had to pay his rent every month to the landlord, and every month he struggled. And I don't want to say that the man was a bad landlord, for all that he was English. Perhaps he was a good landlord, but he liked his rent, and, well, if he didn't get his rent one month, he wouldn't mind. He might mind, but he would be understanding and say he'd come back for it the next month. But whilst in the end he got his money out of Paddy O'Dwyer, it wasn't easy, and he was fed up. And he came one week and he said, listen, he said, if you can't get me the rent by next, if you can't get me the rent by next week, I'm afraid you're all going to have to move out. And, well, they didn't know what to do. And then Paddy O'Dwyer's wife, Mary, said, you must go and sell the cow. If Paddy didn't want to sell the cow, he said, where will we get our drink? Where will we get our milk? What are we going to do for that? He said, well, we'll do without milk. We can easier do without milk than we can without somewhere to live, and we'll grow more potatoes on our field. Well, Paddy O'Dwyer had been married long enough to know that he always had to do as his wife told him. So reluctantly and sadly, he took the cow to market. Now, there were two ways to get to the market. There was the way over the lonely hill, the hill of loneliness, which was the short way, but no one liked to go that way because, well, there were stories. And then there was a long way around the hill. But as Paddy set off, and any of you who've tried to go for a walk with a cow will know it's not the easiest thing to do. Cows, well, they might like walking, but they walk a little bit, they have a snack, and perhaps most important of all, they walk where they want to go. So Paddy had a real difficulty getting his cow, Flora, to do much walking, but he pulled and he poked and he beat, and he decided to go over the hill of loneliness. Well, he'd got about halfway up and was just going around the peak when he saw a little man. The man was no taller than this, and this made Paddy think that he was one of the Sidhe, one of the good people, the fair folk, a leprechaun, a fairy. Paddy O'Dwyer had heard the stories, but he'd never really believed them. Taking one look, he pulled on Flora and tried to get her to walk fast, but, well, Flora didn't seem in the mood for walking. "Hello," said the little man. Good day to you," said Paddy O'Dwyer. "Come on, cow. Now, where are you going with that? Where are you going with that cow of yours?" "I'm taking the cow to market to sell it." "Oh, will you sell it to me?" No. I'm taking it to market," said Paddy, desperately trying to get the cow to move. He didn't want to have any dealings with the good people. He just wanted to get the cow to market and sell it, and he didn't like this interruption at all. Well, he couldn't get the cow to go. And the little man said, "I think you ought to sell it to me." "Well, what will you give me?" "I'll give you what you deserve." "But what is that?" "Oh, I don't think so. I'll give you this little bottle." "Well, I don't think my wife would be happy if I came back from taking our only cow to market with a little bottle and was selling the cow to pay the rent. How am I going to pay the rent with a little bottle?" "It is what you deserve." "Paddy O'Dwyer." "Well, how would you be knowing my name?" "I know all about you. Now, are you going to sell me this cow?" I don't think I am. Come on, Flora. Let's get moving." "But Paddy O'Dwyer, but you know my name. But Paddy O'Dwyer, what would happen? I don't know. This cow is going to get to market. It might die on the way to market." Now, all Paddy O'Dwyer wanted to do was get out of here. And here he was. What was he to do? He couldn't take the cow. The cow wasn't going to walk. And then this little man was saying it would probably die. Well, the only way he could get out of there quickly was by saying yes and taking the bottle and going off at a hurry. But the little man said, "When you get home, Paddy O'Dwyer, just put this bottle on the table and say, 'Bottle, do your duty.'" Well, soon enough, he was home in the cottage. When his wife said he'd got back awfully quick, and he said, "Did you sold the cow?" "Yes, I sold the cow." "What did you get for it?" "Well, I got this bottle from one of the fair folk up there." "What?" And his wife was furious, and she went on. "You are a fool. I always knew you were a fool. I should never have married you, Paddy O'Dwyer. My father said you wouldn't come to anything, and I should have married Roger the baker. Roger the baker would have looked after me. He'd have looked after you with those great big punchy hands. Well, he might not be a looker, Roger the baker, but he's definitely a provider." And she slapped him around the face. "What a fool you are, and where are we going to live? How are we going to pay the rent with this bottle?" Well, he said, "Put it on the table and say, do well." Said, "Well, we'll put it on the table. I don't believe the story. I think you've gone and got drunk. I'm sure it was full of poteen, and you've just drunk it. And even if it had been full of poteen, that's not a good deal for a cow, Paddy O'Dwyer. Well, what do you say to the bottle? Bottle, do your duty." And they stared in amazement as out of what they thought had been an empty bottle clambered a little man, followed by another little man, and they stood on the table and they got out Well, it was a tiny bit of cloth, no bigger, really, than my fingernail. But as they spread it on the table, it turned into a great big linen tablecloth, and that house had never known a tablecloth before. And then they reached into the bottle and they pulled out these tiny shining plates. And as they set them on the table, they grew into full-size plates covered in delicious food. Well, Paddy and Mary sat down and feasted and ate and ate. They had never eaten such good food. And when they'd finished and they were really satisfied, they wondered whether perhaps it would work again, for who knows when they would feed, and they rubbed their bellies and they were very happy. And Mary said, "But it's all very well, but how are we going to pay the rent?" "I don't know," said Paddy O'Dwyer, rubbing his swollen belly. And then he looked at the shiny plates and he said, maybe I can get some money for these. So the next day he walked into Cork and he went to the first shop he saw that had shiny things in the window. And the man didn't want to let him in. I mean, didn't look very smart at all. And he said, "Well, I want to see if you want to buy my plates." And the man took one look at the plates and beckoned him quickly into the back and said, "Well," he said, "what is it that you want for them?" "Well, Paddy, I need to pay my rent." "And how much is that?" "Well, what is it now? Maybe 20 shillings. He got given his 20 shillings and hustled out of the back. And the man said, "Listen, if you ever want to sell me anything more, you come to the back and you come at 6 p.m, no earlier and no later, and you knock and you wait and you don't talk to anyone and no one sees you coming and no one sees you leaving." Well, he got home and he paid the landlord his rent. And they sat there and they ate very well. And every quarter, he'd take a few plates down and get the rent money. One day, a peddler came around knocking door to door to find out if anyone had anything to sell. Paddy was out, but Mary O'Dwyer just had a thought, and she took one of these shiny plates and she showed it to the peddler and asked whether he might like to buy it. And well, he asked her what she thought, and she said what they'd been selling it for. And he rolled his eyes and said, "I think this plate is worth a lot more than that. If you'll trust it to me, I'll take it to Cork and see what I can get, and I'll be back tomorrow." Well, she knew that she had lots more, and she knew that there were more to coming, and she liked him, so she gave it to him, and was astonished when he came back the next day and said, "Look, here are 20 golden guineas I got for that plate. Here you go." And she said, "Well, and what are you having?" He said, "Well, what do you think I should have?" He said, "I think you should have half." "Oh, I couldn't take half," he said. Well, he took half in the end, and he said, "If you want to sell them, you take them into Cork and sell them yourselves. Don't be after sending your husband. I don't think he does very well." After that, they were rich. Not only did they eat well, they had more cows than anyone else and employed lots of people to do their work for them. And the landlord couldn't really understand this at all. He would scratch his head and think, well, Paddy O'Dwyer and all of the O'Dwyers, none of them had been good at farming, and look at him, and smartly dressed, all the nice things they seem to have, and everything seems to be going well. How is this possible? So one day when he was collecting the rent, he said, "Well, Paddy O'Dwyer, you're doing very well, but what is your secret? No one else does nearly so well around here. What is it that you're doing?" Well, maybe Paddy O'Dwyer wasn't the brightest cookie in the box, or maybe he wasn't really thinking, because he said, "Well, it's very simple, Your Honour. I sold my cow, Daisy, to one of the she, to a good person, for this bottle." "Very nice bottle, but I don't think that answers the question." "A bottle, do your duty." And the landlord was amazed when he saw the little men scurrying about and setting a table with the finest delicacies, salmon and roast beef, and even a bottle of champagne. "Well, I mean," he said to Paddy O'Dwyer, I must buy this from you, good fellow." Hearing that, be after selling it, "Well, I'll give you 100 guineas for it." "But why would I be selling this bottle, Your Honour, when it is itself a money-making machine?" "I'll tell you what I'll do. I won't offer you money, but, and you know that we have never sold any land, ever, and you would never be able to own your land. But listen to me, Paddy O'Dwyer, I'll give you your farm and your cottage, freehold forever, to you and your family to live in, to sell, to do whatever you like with it in exchange for this bottle." You what, Your Honour? Let me check with my wife." And he rushed out and said, Mary, the landlord's here. He's offering us to give us the house and the farm in return for the bottle." And, well, Mary O'Dwyer couldn't believe it after all either. To think that they would be landowners and own their own farm. Well, such a thing had never been heard of. Before the landlord could change his mind, they gave him the bottle, and they were given the deeds to their farm and to their house, and they were very, very pleased with themselves. However, it was not such a good bargain, for even before the days of the bottle, they'd been poor farmers, but they'd grown lazy, and they didn't really know how to do it or care how to do it. And then on top of that, well, poor old Paddy couldn't like the food that his wife was cooking, and it just didn't settle well in his stomach, and, well, he didn't feel very well at all, and how could they do a thing? And slowly everything dripped and drabbed away, and they were getting hungry, and they had one cow left, and Mary said, "I think you'd better take that cow up the hill and see if you can get another bottle for it." So, rather reluctantly, because he wasn't entirely happy at the idea of meeting one of the good people again, Paddy O'Dwyer took the bottle, took the cow up the mountain, and it wasn't long before he bumped into his old friend. Looked at him and said, "Hello, Paddy O'Dwyer. That's a fine cow you've got with you. I thank you. Would you be after selling it at all?" "Yes. Would you have one of those bottles at all?" "Here you go. It is what you deserve, Paddy O'Dwyer." Well, Paddy O'Dwyer couldn't wait to be gone, though he did just turn his head over his shoulder and look and see that where the cow and the good person had been a second ago, there was nothing, and there was no boulder, no corner, no tree where they could be hiding. Well, he just ran as fast as he could. Apart from anything else, he was starving. And he burst in and said, "I got another bottle. You got another bottle." What good news. And they sat down and they smiled and they rubbed their tummies and they said, "Bottle, do your duty." And one little man came out and they looked at each other and smiled, and then another man came out and they looked at each other and smiled. But they didn't start laying the table. No, one little man spat at them, and then they both did raspberries, and then they turned around and pulled their trousers down and wiggled their bottoms, and then they ran up and they pulled the curtains down. They threw all the crockery on the ground and smashed it. They went through the cupboards, emptying them. They took a log from the fire and threw it through the window, smashing the only pane. They ripped the sheets of the bed and threw them down the well. They caused havoc. And all the time, Paddy and Mary were chasing them and chasing them and chasing them, desperate to catch them and put them back in the bottle. Well, finally, the house was destroyed, and the two little creatures went back in the bottle. I don't know what to do. Paddy, why don't you go up and see if our old landlord might like to buy another bottle? Paddy smiled and he took the bottle up to the great big house, and he knocked on the door. Now the landlord had been doing very well with his first bottle, been doing very well indeed, so much so that as he approached the house he could see the grand new stables being built, a great tower going up, and he'd heard talk of the big house in London and a great deal of to-do and fitting out with jewels of the only daughter. And well, he was shown in to see. Hello, Paddy O'Dwyer. How nice to see you. What a wonderful thing, that bottle. It saved us a fortune on cooks, and tell you that. Paddy, how nice to see you. Well, what can I do for you? Well, Your Honour, you see, it is after this. I met the good person again up on the lonely mountain. And I got another bottle. You got another bottle? Why, can I see it? That's a nice bottle. Now, well, would you sell it to me, Paddy O'Dwyer? Because the thing is that landlord, even though the bottle produced gold plates every day, he was kind of overextending himself and was borrowing money against gold plates that he didn't have, and commissioning buildings and buying property. I might, Your Honour. You wouldn't be after money, would you? Money's no good to you. Want land? I'll tell you what, I gave you one farm for the last bottle. How about I give you your two neighbours' farms for this bottle, and then they'll pay you rent? And that would be very good, Your Honour, yes. Well, thank you, said he. Took the bottle. And the same words, the same words. And if you don't mind me saying, Your Honour, if I may repeat what was said to me when I got it, you'll get what you deserve. Bottle, do your duty. Oh, look! As the two little men crawled out of the bottle. Well, his smile didn't last long. No, all the fine china, all the ornaments were smashed. The whole house was wrecked as he chased after them, and he said, "Paddy O'Dwyer, will you stop? Will you take them back? Will you? Oh, I will, Your Honour, if you'll give me the other bottle. I'll do anything. Well, of course, They didn't manage to catch them until the house was wrecked. And then Paddy O'Dwyer, clutching both bottles and the deeds to the two farms next to him, made his exit, and he became a wealthy man. Bit by bit, he bought up more farms, for the landlord was in financial trouble, shall we say, a little bit embarrassed. And at the end of the day, his son married the landlord's daughter. And that is why, even today, in that part of Cork, there are O'Dwyers in the big house and O'Dwyers farming the land, and that hill is known as Bottle Hill.